All right. So in today's training session, we'll be going over some of the more advanced aspects of Tech Manager with a main focus on TekWizard, the tool for loading tech monitors with configuration, as well as the debug tools built into Tech Manager. So let's get started and pull up TekWizard. As you can see here, TekWizard splits up into two different kinds of templates. We have Tech Monitor templates. This stores location information and other general settings, such as network and email settings. And the device template, which contains the drivers for devices as well as macros and events. So let's first show how to get tech monitors from a tech manager, templates from a tech monitor that has already been installed. As you can see here, we have a handy button down here that will let you get the templates already loaded into a tech monitor. It'll pull up a list. This list will be the same as the tech monitors you have in the holding area. So let's just pull up this one, for example. So as you can see here, at the bottom of the screen, it has pulled in some new device templates. Generally, it is the name of the original template prefaced with the serial number of the tech monitor you got the template from. And I chose this tech monitor in particular to demonstrate what happens if you save and load a tech monitor template from this a couple of times. It will preface the driver with the serial number, and if you do that a couple of times, as you can see here, the driver might get a bit overloaded. And now I'll take you through the various steps in the TekWizard process. So we're going to grab this demo template for today's example. We'll start off with location. Location, this is just where you set general location information, including the name of your tech monitor. This is what it'll show up as in the project settings and over here in the holding area. After that, you have fields for campus or other general location, building, a group or department, as well as room. And one handy feature we have here is all of these, as you can see, are drop-down boxes. So you can select buildings and rooms that are already in the project side. So if I want to change this from the TekVox offices to TekU, can do that, and it'll give me a list of the TekU buildings. You can also see, as we have down here, an additional field for tech monitor information. We generally use that here to include some additional information such as what touchpad or touch panel project we use for this room, which can provide an easy lookup if you ever find yourselves needing to replace a touchpad or TCX10, as well as the device template that goes with the room. And there are in total 5 fields for information that you can put in whatever you feel might be handy to be able to look up at a later date and time. Next, we have settings. We'll start off with the network settings. Here you can set whether or not the tech monitor will get its IP address automatically from the router using DHCP, or you can set it static. You'll want to be careful when setting it to a static IP, because if, for example, the static IP conflicts with another network device on the network, it will make it hard to contact one, the other, or both devices on the network. And you may need to use some of the debug tools we're going to go over later to fix. Over here, next to the IP address settings are the port settings. In general, you will not need to mess with the tech patrol or tech control port. This third option here is for the passcode. This is where you can set the passcode that you use when searching for this tech monitor. And lastly, we have a timeout. Sometimes tech monitors may take a little longer. This just allows us to tell Tech Manager to give it a bit more time before you say you can't find it. In general, you probably won't need to mess with this setting either, but it is there in case you need it. After that, we have host settings. This is where we can do stuff like turn on or off tech security, as well as enable the various timers in a tech monitor. We also have notifications. Usage reports will be emailed to one of the two addresses we'll be going over in email settings if email is properly set up. And we also encourage you to leave error message notifications on. And you can also set time zones and whether or not the tech monitor's clock will adjust for daylight savings. Here we have the email settings. It's very important to get this stuff set up properly if you want tech security and its notification emails to work properly. So the kinds of things you'll need to set up the email for a tech monitor, you'll need an SMTP mail server along with the credentials and information to log on to that SMTP server. And then you'll need a number of emails. The email the tech monitor will be sending from. So right here I have tech3@example.com, as well as who will be receiving these emails. There's a normal level email as well as a security level email. The security email is for tech security events, and you'll want to make sure that that is a well-monitored email address to make sure you get the best out of tech security. After that, we have where you can set email messages. So we have a few examples in the normal email. And as you can see, it's split up into two different priorities. A high priority message will obviously be sent before a normal priority message. And if you want to edit them, you can just click it and select edit, and it will prompt you to type in whatever message you like. And we also have security emails. As you can see, this has a fewer number of available messages, and all of them are high priority. After that, we have asset information. This is where we input stuff such as manufacturer and model number of the devices in a room, along with serial numbers and asset numbers. We also include purchase dates and warranty dates, so it is easy to look up whether or not your system is still in warranty, along with when the room was installed, and use even a field for you to input whatever installer you used for that room. And now we're going to move on to the device template portion of TekWizard. As you can see here, this tech monitor is already loaded with, this template is already loaded with a number of serial devices. It's quite easy to select new drivers. The drivers are organized by device type, such as switcher or projector, and manufacturer as well. So if you ever get confused about which serial port number here corresponds to what in a Tech 3, we have a handy diagram here to help. Serial port 1 is always tech security. Serial port 2 is comm, and serial port 3 is the tech bus. And if you're ever unsure, you can always hover over the comm port or the tech bus port, and it'll give you a little pop-up telling you what serial port number it applies to. Next, we have the I/O ports. This is where we have settings for stuff like the device theft, which is on tech security, as well as motion, which is on the occupancy port. And then we have additional settings, which are generally used for stuff like screen lift and other simpler actions. As said, there are a number of options here, whether you need to invert the signal, whether the signal needs a pull down to properly work on the device, or whether or not the device is 12 volts. You can also enable an IR driver. So if you check this little IR field, it'll ungray out this little driver box where you can select from a number of IR drivers. These are simpler than the standard serial drivers and do not provide as much feedback to the tech monitor because they're on the I/O ports. After that, we have a place where you can set up various statuses and controls. As you can see here, we have statuses for what device is currently being used as the main source, as well as what system mode the room is in. We use these to set up various statuses, which we can reference later on in the macros. And lastly here, we have TekEasyLink. TekEasyLink is how we keep the our touch panels, our TCX7s and TCX10s in sync with the room state. So we use this to keep the panels in line with what's going on in the room. And it is very important that these different states stay in roughly the same place. And before we continue on to macros, I'm going to do a quick demonstration of what you do if you wanted to switch out one model of projector, for example, for another. So I'm going to go and select a different model of projector for our main device. Let's see. I think for this example, we'll go with this one right here. So when you select a new device, you first want to go over to TekEasyLink and replace the old device statuses with ones for the new device. This is quite simple. You just navigate to the device in question and move to its options. And we're just going to want to replace the old ones with the new ones we're adding. It's very important that when we do that, we keep these feedbacks in the same position. Otherwise, the touch panel will have a harder time staying in sync with the room. Let's see, we just have freeze and mute next. And there we go. All right. And once we're done with TekEasyLink, we're going to want to take a look at the macros. Since we changed the device driver, it's popped up a list of any macros that have been changed with this change in driver. TekWizard does its best to swap out the old commands for the relevant new commands on the new driver, but it's not perfect. So you'll always want to make sure you go in and double check that everything looks right. So here we have the original macro, which we can compare to what we currently have in it. So far, this looks good. Nothing seems out of the ordinary. Let's go to display off. Pretty simple, shouldn't need to change anything there. And then display on. So as we can see here, the input is wrong, or at least different than what we have in the original macro. So we're going to want to go in and change that. So to edit a condition, which this is, you'll just double click on the condition and it'll pop up a menu to edit it. And we're just going to want to switch this VGA input to HDMI, like we have in the original driver. Okay. As you can see, I forgot to save this macro before continuing. It will prompt me to save it, which I'm going to do. And you can also save by hitting apply right here. This seems like it doesn't have anything we need to change. And let's look at display mute. Right. So this looks pretty good. So we can continue on to the next step. And while we're here, it's fairly easy to edit and add to macros. All you need to do is find the specific command for your device and drag it from here to the macro box, and it'll just automatically add it. Pretty easy to do once you know what you're doing. After macros, we have events. So there are a number of events. Start is when the tech monitor first starts up, either when you first plug it in or after a restart. Typically, we have this call a macro called start. We also have macros for when the timers go off. So as you can see, for the system off timer, we have it called the system off macro. Next, we have tech control. Tech control is a legacy feature that we don't really use anymore, so you won't need to concern yourself with this tab. And then we have various events for when a device is turned on or off. As you can see, we have options for all three of the serial devices on the Tech 3 and room for additional devices if you're using, say, a Tech PC. And next you have the I/O inputs. You have device theft. Generally, you won't need to mess with this. When device theft goes high, you'll want it to run the device theft macro. Motion, same. Motion on is when the signal goes high, and motion off is when it goes low. And depending on what you have in your inputs 3 and 4, you can select any number of macros from the list, or you can select any macro from the list that may be relevant for a signal change on those ports. After that, we have schedules. So you can schedule a tech monitor to run certain macros at specific times of day on different days of the week. Our main schedule that we set up is a system off schedule, which will turn off a room late at night in the event someone may have forgotten to turn everything off before leaving. And this can be a big energy saver, as well as helps to prolong the life of the devices in the room. You can also set a schedule to just run once at a specific date and time, or any number of days out of the week. You can set up to 4 schedules as need be. After that, we have the finish page. This is where we can save our monitor templates and device templates. So I'm going to go here right now and save the changes I've made to these templates. I'm just gonna make sure these save to settings and device templates are selected and hit save. It will ask me if I want to overwrite them, and I do. And I'm not gonna close TekWizard just yet. Actually, switch to Tech PC real quick, as that is what I have on hand. So as you can see here, there are a number of different options for loading a tech monitor. We're going to want to select Apply to Tech Monitor and select the tech monitor we want to load. For this example, we don't need to concern ourselves with the advanced load or the tech bus load, but I'll mention them a bit before we continue on to the debugging step. So I'm going to hit save here, and it will pull up a loading menu that'll just give you the progress as it's loading the various templates onto the tech monitor. And while we're waiting for that, I'm going to go over the tech bus load. So when the tech bus load is turned on, it will give you the option to load a tech touchpad that is connected to the tech monitor or through a 1201 to the tech monitor. So if I wanted to load a touchpad connected to the TekMar I'm loading, first I'll want to double click this and pull up a project. So this is what a Tek touchpad project file looks like. I'm just going to select that and it will show the full file path here. As you can probably guess by the name Tek bus load, this is loaded through the Tek bus port on the Tek monitor. Their exception is if either one of the 1201 pass-through modes is enabled, 1201 in or 1201 MV, it will load the driver through the Tek monitor's second port, the COM port, to the 1201, which then passes the project file to its connected touchpad. And I generally advise that after you do a Tek bus load, you reload the Tek monitor templates again, just to prevent any small memory errors that may arise from loading the Tek touchpad through the Tek monitor. And now that we have that done, I'll go over the debugging tools we include in TekWizard. So here you can access the USB debug port access. This uses a USB-A to USB mini cable, which plugs into the front of the Tek monitor in what will be labeled as a Tek debug port. If you don't have these kinds of cables or are unsure where to get them, feel free to contact us at TekVox and we can help you get any debug cables you may need. I unfortunately do not have a Tek 3 and USB cable on me, but the network debug menu is exactly the same as a USB debug menu. It's just you don't need the USB plug to access the network one. So if you want to access the network debug menu, you'll want to right click the Tek monitor you want to look at and select Open Telnet Session. This will open up a little window. It'll give you some information about the Tek monitor in question, along with a number of options. I'm going to go over these options one by one. We'll start with print log. This will just print a general log of things the Tek monitor has been doing. As you can see here, this Tek monitor is logging its GHCP discovery information, and it's just saying we have a success. We've successfully gotten an IP address from the router. This log can have a lot more information depending on what the Tek monitor is doing, but this can be a good starting place to see what might be going on with a Tek monitor. We also provide the option to clear the debug log in case it's getting full or you need it cleared out so you can see some newer information without having to go through any old unnecessary logs. We also have, after the log, the option to pass through. So you can directly send serial commands from this debug menu to devices on the various serial ports of a TEK3. So it'll first ask you to select which channel or serial port you're sending the commands to. We're just going to select one here, and it will ask you a few options. So I'll go through what each of these mean. Enter normal data. What this does is it will end all of the commands you type in with a carriage return and line feed. These are fairly common like end marks for a serial command across a number of different devices, but not all serial devices use the carriage return and line feed to specify the end of a serial command. Some only use a line feed, abbreviated here as LF. Some use an STX and ETX character to signal the end of a command, and some don't have any special end identifier, which is what you'd use for. This will add nothing onto the end of your commands and will just send them as is. And you are also presented with the option of whether or not you want to convert your serial commands to hex or hexadecimal. Some serial devices expect their serial commands to come in as hexadecimal, while others just expect normal text. For now, we aren't going to worry about the hex conversion. And after this, you can type in any commands you want, and you'll see whether or not the device responds to them. If you want to exit the serial pass-through mode, just type in 3 X's and hit enter, and it will take you back to the debug menu. Next, we have network configuration. This is where we can set the static IP address for a TEK monitor. So when you first select 4, it'll present you with the current IP address. If you want to change the group of numbers, it will present the various parts of the IP address one by one. So I don't want to change these first 3 options here, so I'm just going to hit enter. Let's say I want to put it at 74 instead of 73. So here you just type in the change you want to make and then hit enter. And then it will prompt you to do the same for the gateway and the network mask. So after you've gone through the network config, before the TEK monitor will change its static IP address, you'll need to select 7, save and exit. That will tell the TEK monitor it needs to go and get this new IP information and use it instead of whatever it's currently using. If you realize you actually want a TEK monitor to be in DHCP mode, you'll just hit 5 and it will set DHCP to on. And again, much like with setting the static IP address, you'll need to hit save and exit after setting the DHCP mode. Option 6 will let you clear the serial drivers. This can fix some problems, but in general, you probably won't need to do that, but the option is there. And we've already been over save and exit. reset will restart a tech monitor. It will power on and then power back off, power off and then power back on. And after that, we have debug mode. This again prompts us whether we're getting the serial data in hex or not. For this specific device, I believe it's not. We'll select channel 1. And as you can see here, we can see the serial information or data that is going out of the tech monitor and what we're receiving from the device on the other end. So this little arrow, if it's pointing to the right, that is data going out from the tech monitor. And an arrow to the left is the responses coming in from the device on the other end, be it a display or a switcher or what have you. So as we can see here, the tech monitor appears to be communicating with its display properly. And this mode can be useful so you can see exactly what the serial device is responding with. Some devices, if they don't recognize a command, will respond with some kind of error message over serial, while others will give an affirmative, like, this is okay. It's an okay command. After that, we have net stats. This isn't likely to be very useful to you. It just provides some general error messages and numbers that won't really make sense to most people who aren't super familiar with the inner workings of the tech monitors. And then we have the log level. It'll present us with the current log level, and I believe we can change it with, I want to say, I believe the higher level log numbers being increased logging. And after that, our only other option is to quit. And that will just quit us out of this menu. And voila. Before we go on to the questions portion of this session, I'm going to take a quick look at the Tech PC debug menu. This debug menu is a little different than the Tech Monitor or Tech 3 debug menu. As you can see, it has most of the same options, some a bit different, with the main differences being easy link pass-through. This allows you to send easy link commands to the tech monitor, as well as see any easy link commands that are coming in. And this can be helpful for debugging connection between your TCX7s and TCX10s and the Tech PC. Nope. After that, the network stats and info information is a bit different for the Tech PC versus your standard Tech Monitor. Here, the net stats prints the information of the various network devices on, or network ports on the Tech PC. since they often have more than one way of connecting to the network, whether it be multiple LAN ports or a Wi-Fi chip, and it will give you their various MAC addresses as well as their current IP addresses for all of these devices. There's also the option for managing a watchdog. Most of the tech PCs have yet to include the watchdog device, so they are disabled on most of the tech PCs. And you're also presented with an option to restart the computer that is running the tech PC. So you can do that remotely from the debug telnet in case you need to restart the computer remotely. All right. And that should cover all of the stuff you need to know about TekWizard and the USB and telnet debugging. And now I will open the floor to questions.
Yeah, Matthew, we actually had a question near the beginning from Tammy. So she was asking about inverting a signal in the I/O port setting page.
So I'll admit the lower level I/O ports aren't as much in my wheelhouse as some of the serial port stuff is. Some devices, how they communicate. So I want to say inverting, I believe, normally the tech monitor measures the I/O signals on a going high and going low basis, and inverting just, I want to say, will switch what the tech monitor recognizes as high or low. I'm not 100% on that. So if you do find yourself...
Oh, Matthew, I was just gonna say I'll ask Mike about that, and Tammy, I'll follow up with you on that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I thought maybe it was just setting it as an input or an output port, or perhaps swapping 1 and 2, which I've never heard of. In any case, if it's changing from input to output, I wanted to know which the default was.
All right, well, let's look at this diagram right here. So let's see. Okay, so as it is, I will say the top 4 are all for setting up your inputs, with 1 and 2 being reserved for tech security and occupancy sensor respectively, with all in the second group for setting up outputs.
Does that help answer your question, Tammy?
Not exactly. If you would follow up with Mike.
For sure.
Thank you.
All right, and what other questions do we have? All right, well, if there's nothing else, we'll go ahead and cut you guys.
I'm sorry, I have one more if nobody else does. Maybe you went over this in the first session, which I'm not sure how I managed to miss. In any case, when you were going over the macros, how do you match those macros up with the actual buttons on your either keypad or touch panel?
In general, and this, at least how you match it up with the touch, like the tech touchpad, we do plan on having a training session for the touchpad program.
Oh, okay, then never
specific-
mind. I'll wait for that one. Sorry.
That's
No
all right.
worries. They're
Thanks for the
excellent
question.
questions. And as far as the like the panels, so like the TCX7s and TCX10s, we program the macros as we expect them to be programmed in the tech monitor, with, I believe, really the only macros you can change via the settings for those projects being the input macros, so which macros the sources are on. As long as you don't like move around macros when making any changes, you shouldn't run into any problems with them conflicting with their touchpad or panel project.
Thank you.
Yeah, so with that, if there are no more questions, we will cut y'all loose and catch you for the next training session. But if you have more questions, just, I'll give it a minute. All right. Okay. With that, then, yeah, we'll go ahead and call it. So thanks for attending, everyone. We'll send you a email with some reference materials as well as a feedback survey. So please let us know what you liked, what you didn't like, how we can improve, and we will catch you on the next session.
Thank you.